Foreword. I love acting. A performance by an actor that is well trained, who possesses talent and creativity, is one of the very finest of art forms that exists. Actors have it within their power to make us laugh or cry, to bring us thoughts and ideas, to stir our very souls. They also have it within their power to bore us and leave us so uninspired that we sleep through their work. If you're reading or listening to this, I am going to assume that you are, or wish to be, the first type of actor. That you really care how your acting affects the audience. It is for you that I have written this book. But I want to caution you, what I have written here is only a part of the acting picture. Because acting is not a dead art. It is alive and growing. It will continue to be alive and growing for as long as there are stories to be told about people and the situations that they get themselves into. As a living art, it will change and will continue to change over and over again. Stanislavski introduced an approach to acting that changed everything that happened in the times that came later. Others came after him and changed it again. Others will come after us and change it in their own way. There's no single approach to acting that will not be changed and expanded over the course of time. So, while I talk with authority about this method, about what I have learned and am passing on to you, I am only a link in a chain. Others will add their own insights. Which is the way it should be, if acting is to continue to be a living art. Embrace the contradictions and oppositions within this art form, and you will never be bored or boring. Stanislavski was always seeking to understand the limits and structures of acting. Sandy Meisner spent his whole life teaching actors, and was always searching for more insight. The passion of these people and all the others that hotly debate these things are what will keep acting a living art form. Any actor that doesn't understand or have this passion is dead to acting, and why would anyone want to watch a dead actor do anything? I learned a great deal about myself by writing this book, and a great deal more by studying acting in the depth that I have. But that is one of the reasons that I love this art form. I can study and learn until the day I die, and no one will begrudge me the effort. It is in this spirit that I pass this knowledge to you. Use it well. And good luck. Chapter 1. A brief history. As far as I can tell, acting breaks down into two major types. They are representational acting and evocative acting. Oh, come on, Peter. Every country has their style of acting, and they argue about it endlessly, and you want to lump them all into two categories. Well, yes, I do. But let me explain. From the actor's point of view, there are really only two types. The two types are generated from the two major arguments about the nature of the actor's job within the process of acting. The first of these is, throughout the history of mankind, the major form of acting was representational. The actor's job was to be a spokesperson for the gods, for the spirits, or for the writer. As far as I can tell, the actor did not invest any of his own emotions into the process. In other words, the actor was not personally involved with the events. The actor would put on a mask, or headdress, and represent the person, god, or animal, that the story was about. If there were emotions, they were presented to the audience, as if they were another type of mask that the actor used. The performer indicated to the audience all the things that the gods wanted them to know. This form of presentation was focused directly on the mind and intellect of the audience. Any emotion generated was generated only in the mind of the audience. Many forms of theatrical presentation still use this structure of acting. The opera, ballet, circus, TV sitcoms, stand-up comedy, improv comedy, and in Japan, kabuki, etc. It has a long and distinguished history of use in the world, and will probably be here for a long, long time. Because it does its job very well, it informs, it presents, it shows, it entertains. In Britain, the major form of acting is representational, although this too is changing. The actor's job is to present to the audience the information of the story, without the unnecessary clutter of the actor's personal emotions. This isn't to say that they do not want any emotional content in their performance, but the emotional content has nothing to do with the actor's real emotions. The actor's real emotions are to be strictly left out of it. In fact, the actor's real emotions are thought to interfere with the acting process and be a detriment. Thus, acting training in Britain is geared toward the use of the voice, movement, etc. Anything that will help the actor to craft and present the structure of the story to the audience, without actually living through those emotions. There's a wonderful story about the acting in the film Marathon Man, starring Dustin Hoffman and Laurence Olivier. Hoffman had stayed up for several nights and not showered, so that he could find the right feelings to do a certain scene. When Olivier heard about this, he said, "But my dear boy, why don't you just act it?" or words to that effect. I bring up this story to point out the difference between representational acting and that other sort that seems to be the chief diet of American actors. Evocative acting. A funny thing happened in Europe at the end of the Middle Ages. There was a shift that took place from telling stories about the heroes and the gods to stories about more everyday sorts of peoples. In France, the Commedia dell'arte grew up from street improv into a premier art form, giving birth to the French stage. In England, the mystery plays gave way to the Elizabethan stage and Shakespeare. By the late 1800s there was a growing theater that told stories about the people that you might encounter in the everyday world. And this led to our second form of acting. In Russia, a man named Konstantin Stanislavski began to notice something about the performances of certain actors. These actors not only presented the material in a clear and dramatic way, they also engaged and inspired the audience. People were more taken with these actors' performance of a particular role than they were any other actor's performance of that same role. Stanislavski wanted to know what ability did these actors have that other actors didn't. He decided to study the structure of acting and find out what made these actors so inspiring. He both succeeded and failed. He never did get to an understanding of just what that inspiration was. However, he did find a way of acting and of training actors that made those actors more able to reach the moments that would inspire the audience. This is the Stanislavski system, and came to be known in America as the method. There's that word. Method. I knew you were going to get to that. There was a group of actors that discovered the Stanislavski system when the Moscow Art Theater came to New York to perform. These actors, inspired by the quality of the acting that they saw, set out to create that for themselves, and the seeds of the American method were sown. There was a problem, though. Stanislavski had written several books about his system, but only one of them was available in translation to these young actors. But they did have that one book, and faithfully set out to use this information in their work. The group theater was formed by some of these actors. The group theater lasted for about 10 years. One of its actors, Stella Adler, got the chance to go to Paris and study with Stanislavski. She found that the group theater had only a part of Stanislavski's work, and what she had learned in Paris totally transformed her attitude to what they were doing. When she returned, some of the actors in the group theater believed her, and others did not. This was the start of a split in the American acting community that existed for a long time and may still exist today. One faction of this split was Lee Strasberg. He left the group theater in 1935 in artistic disagreement over the first production of a Clifford Odets play. The other faction was made up of the actors that had embraced the information that Stella Adler brought back from Paris. This included Sandy Meisner, who in 1935 had begun to teach at the neighborhood playhouse. He remained with the group theater until its end. He took to the playhouse what he had learned from Miss Adler as well as what he had learned from his earlier studies at the Theater Guild. In 1940 Elia Kazan formed the Actors Studio, and in 1941 he asked Sandy Meisner to teach there. Meisner did, and brought many students with him, but because of his other commitments wasn't able to devote himself fully to the new studio. He asked Lee Strasberg to teach with him there, but because of the creative differences between them and his other commitments, Meisner left the studio. Strasberg remained. The difference between the two major schools of evocative acting in America are most clearly shown by the approaches of Lee Strasberg and Sandy Meisner. Let's backtrack a moment. The prime difference between the Stanislavski system and the historic representational acting is in how the actor is emotionally involved with the situations in the story. The prime purpose of the actor in the Stanislavski system, is to connect to and inspire the audience. To do this, it is believed that the actor should actually experience the emotions of the story, not just represent them. That, if the actor actually connects with and lives through the events on stage, the audience can empathetically feel what the character is going through, and that can deepen the audience's involvement in the story. There is a lot of confusion about method acting in America. This confusion stems from the two schools of thought about how to go about creating this emotion that the audience responds to. However, both these factions of the American method believe that the actor's emotional involvement is needed. The primary difference between them is in how the actor generates these emotions and their importance within the acting process. The faction headed by Lee Strasberg believes that these emotions should be generated by use of sense memory. The actor goes into their past history and finds a moment that has the emotional quality that they need, and using the memory of that experience, they attach the emotion of that experience to the moment in the role where that emotion is needed. The faction, headed by Sandy Meisner, holds that the actor should not use their life experiences for the generation of emotion. They can instead use any event that they can imagine to generate the needed emotion. It bases its generation of emotion on the ability of the mind to react to an imagined event as if it were a real event, thus giving the actor any emotion that is needed whenever it is needed, without them having to have experienced it before. I personally believe that the second way, taught by Meisner, is the sanest way to go. Many people, actors included, have past events in their lives that are traumatic. This trauma makes it hard to approach these memories. It also makes it harder for the actor to access those emotions in the acting process. For actors to go and muck around in their own past in search of appropriate emotions is a dangerous thing for their mental health. That should be done only with the help of a trained therapist. Using the imagination to create the desired emotion bypasses these dangerous emotions and adds one very important thing to the actor's work: flexibility. If an actor uses their real-life experience as the model for their emotions, then they can only act the emotions that are found in those experiences. This is limiting. As unhealthy as this is, it is useful, but what if the role they have been hired to play asks for an emotion that isn't contained in their life experiences? Or, more importantly, what if the role asks for an emotion that is more primal to the human experience? The deep level of primal emotions is the very level that is blocked to us by traumatic events. However, if you generate the needed emotions from your ability to imagine, then you can play any emotion that any role asks of you without going into your own psychology and possibly stirring up troubling memories. It also allows you to go at this work of acting in a more craft-like and professional way, something that, to my way of thinking, is sorely needed in this profession. One additional problem created by the sense memory form of acting is that it forces actors to focus their attention into their own head and internalize, when their attention should be focused outside and externalized. Also, as you will see later, emotional preparation is only one of a larger number of acting techniques. It is limited to a very small part of the acting experience. I will go into this in more detail in the sections on the emotional bridge and on relating. Well, hopefully at this point you know more about the different types of acting and a little about the history of the different acting factions in America. I have simplified and generalized the history of the group theater and the different acting schools a lot, and hope that they will forgive me the generalizations. I urge every actor to study acting history for themselves, and especially the history of the group theater. Thanks for watching.